evening, dear viewers. This is RTD's English News Edition. Coming up, tonight's major stories. The National Solidarity Week has been officially launched in Obok. In Iran, 15 people died in a plane crash. Welcome to our newsroom. It's good to be with you. The President of the National Assembly, Mr. Mohamed Ali Hamad, has received this morning 2 French parliamentarians on a working visit to Djibouti. The President welcomed the parliamentarians, Mr. Jacques-Marie Lucien and Mr. Severin Gibson, and praised the outstanding relations between the two countries. The meeting took place in the presence of the President of the Djibouti France Friendship Group in the National Chamber, Mr. Dileita Mohamed Dileita, and the Chief of Staff Idris Mohamed Ahmed. After his welcoming words, Mr. Mohamed Ali Hamad said he was honored by the visit of the deputies. The after personalities from both sides reviewed the state of bilateral relations between the two countries and parliamentary institutions, including ways and means to further strengthen parliamentary diplomacy. In front of his hostess, the President of the National Assembly raised the necessity for the Parliamentary Friendship Group to contribute to the reinforcement of the ties of cooperation uniting the two nations. And for his part, the Honorable Dileita Mohamed Dileita wanted to highlight the relations between the two brother peoples while insisting on the French attachment to the land of exchange and meeting, that is the Republic of Djibouti. Always in the National Assembly, the National Assembly's Committee on the Law yesterday held a meeting to consider 2 bills, and this work was led by Mrs. Kaltoum and in the presence of all members of the Commission. The government was represented by the Minister of the Interior, Mr. Hassan Omar Mohamed. The discussions were intense and constructive. At the end of the meeting, the members of the committee gave their opinion to forward the 2 bills at the next plenary meeting. The State Secretary for Social Affairs yesterday launched in Obok City the National Week of Solidarity, which has for a slogan Solidarity and Social Cohesion. This end, a large delegation led by the Secretary of State for National Solidarity, Mrs. Muna Osman Aden, and including the Minister of National Education, Mr. Mustafa Mohamed Mahmoud, and the Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, Mr. Hassan Mohamed Kamil, went to the region of Obok. Numerous other personalities, including the Director General of the EDDS, Executive Secretary of Honors, and the President of the Foundation Assistance to Education, Sheikh Mansour bin Musallam, also made the trip. The choice of Obok for the launch of this week of National Solidarity is justified by the desire of the Secretary of State for Social Affairs to be innovative in decentralizing social actions to bring them closer to the populations in need. The Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, Mr. Hassan Mohamed Kamil, has welcomed in his intervention this initiative of his colleague in charge of social affairs and his willingness to implement many projects for the benefit of the inhabitants of the region. As many projects in progress, the Minister of Education, Mr. Mustafa Mohammed Mahmoud, held up as a pledge to improve the living conditions of rural populations. The Minister of Education also indicated that the training in hospitality and cooking will be implemented for young people at Obok Technical High School. He also announced that his department has committed to implement other projects, including the creation of 4 new schools in Obok, 2 in the localities of Swali and Ilisola, which are already under construction, and the 2 others in localities Dato and Mulhul. This offers a better ability to master the relationship between social protection and field work. On this occasion, the Secretary of State for Social Affairs, Mrs. Muna Osman Aden, has therefore emphasized the need to strengthen the basic social infrastructure in the regions and create a socio-economic environment conducive to encouraging the population to stay in its areas of origin. The Secretary of State has announced a series of social projects, including the rehabilitation of the health center, the extension of this electricity network, the realization of a water pipe from the boreholes to the city's reservoirs, the acquisition of a cold room and equipment for the fishermen, as well as extension of the general high school students and the rehabilitation equipment of the Obok College dormitory. The Minister of Housing, Urbanism and the Environment, Mr. Musa Mohammed Ahmed, received this morning in his office the new ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany at Djibouti, Mrs. Anke Holstein. This meeting took place in the presence of Mr. Hussein Rirash, Director of Environment and Sustainable Development. The Minister of Environment discussed with the German diplomat relations between the 2 countries and ways to develop the level of cooperation in various fields. He has welcomed the German ambassador to Djibouti and wished her success in her mission. The head of the German diplomatic mission in Djibouti expressed her satisfaction that the relations between Djibouti and Berlin are excellent, and she spoke of her determination to act to strengthen bilateral cooperation in order to meet the aspirations and hopes of the 2 friendly peoples. And the Minister of Health, Dr. Jamal Al-Mulki, received yesterday morning in his cabinet the new ambassador of Turkey accredited to Djibouti, Mr. Salim Levin. The meeting took place in the presence of the Secretary General of Health, Dr. Saleh Bunaita, and officials of the Department of Health. The Minister of Health immediately welcomed the new Turkish ambassador and expressed his best wishes for the accomplishment of his mission. Then the discussion focused on strengthening health cooperation between the 2 countries. The delegation of the African Peer Review Mechanism continued its meetings with the various political actors of the country. These experts are immersed in the progress made on fiscal decentralization with a focus on good governance in the country. The delegation met today with the Minister of Justice, where the decentralization of justice in the regions was discussed in order to be close to the regional authorities. Afterwards, the delegation met with the acting Minister of Decentralization. Discussions focused on the government's action plan for mobilizing the resources of local authorities, capacity building in human, financial and material resources. And finally, the Budget Minister has received the APRM delegation. And during this meeting, the minister stressed that local and regional authorities must have economic and financial autonomy and in general internal development in order to offer the population a better living environment. Communities will be able to decide on their needs and will benefit from adequate means. Making Djiboutians from the diaspora or living abroad development actors in building their capacities. It is under this theme that opened this morning at the People's Palace a workshop jointly organized by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the International Organization of Migrants, IOM. The aim of this workshop was to set up a steering committee on the Migrants Guide 2030. This committee is made up of the representatives of various ministries, notably the Ministry of Communication, Transportation, Finance, the Ministry of Interior, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Urban Housing and Rehabilitation Agency known as ARULO. This committee will put in place a reflective approach to provide concrete answers that tend to the national development strategy, how to associate or even mobilize the diaspora to development issues. A question at the top of the agenda of cooperation policies, both in terms of migration and development. IOM Djibouti Representative Lalini Varsimi emphasized the importance of developing a cross-sectoral engagement strategy for the implementation of a roadmap. In this opportunity, we announce the death of Mohamed Aden Elmi, who retired from La Nation, a father of 7 children. He was born in 1951 in Djibouti. He died at Peltier Hospital Sunday evening. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And now moving on to the international news, Democratic Republic of Congo, the Southern African Development Community, SADC, on Sunday called on DRC to establish a unity government after the disputed presidential election and voted for a recount votes. To the surprise of many observers, the Congolese Electoral Commission announced in the night of Wednesday to Thursday the historic victory of opponent Felix ahead of Martin Fayulu and the candidate supported by incompetent President Joseph Kabila Emmanuel Shadari. Mr. Fayulu immediately denounced fraud and lodged an appeal with the Constitutional Court. At the same time, Seni announced that the majority favorable to Mr. Kabila had been renewed in the National Assembly. On Sunday, Zambian President Edgar, the current president of SADC, called on Congolese leaders to consider a negotiated political agreement for an inclusive government. And in Iran, 15 people died this morning in a crash of an Iranian military cargo plane. Details in this video.
Because of the Iranian Napoleon 707 military cargo plane reportedly carrying meat from Kyrgyzstan crashed on Monday while trying to land west of Iran's capital, killing 15 people abroad and leaving 1 survivor, authorities say. The crash marked just the latest aviation disaster for Iran, which had hoped to replace its aging fleet under terms of the 2015 nuclear deal with world powers.
That's all for this edition. Thank you for being with us on RTD channel and have a good night.